you're looking for wildlife, this is probably the premier spot.
On this week's show, we visit the largest natural lake in Arizona. Can you guess where we are?
We'll make the most scared person come back with a smile on their face every time.
Horses, steer, buffalo, oh my. This adventure gets wilder by the minute. Woo! Then join us in the arena for a roping challenge. Does this duo have what it takes? In Ponderosa Pine Country, just 2.5 hours north of Phoenix, an oasis vacation awaits. Hi everyone, I'm Robin Stool, and this week on Arizona Highways, we head north to escape the heat. And that's where we find water, buffaloes, wranglers, and ropers. In this lush setting of Ponderosa Pine Forest, your outdoor adventure is about to begin. Take a self-guided tour of this 300-acre property, ranger style. Or quiet things down fishing lakeside with the kids. A 2.5-hour drive northeast of Phoenix is all it takes to reach this mountain retreat.
It's the largest natural lake in the state of Arizona, when full. It's roughly 7.5 miles long by 5 wide.
At an elevation of 7,000 feet, summer temps at Mormon Lake rarely hit 90 degrees. It's cool, refreshing, and even a little bit wild.
I've sat on my back porch and counted up to 400 elk standing out in the lake bottom area out here.
Our tour guide, Scott Gold, has lived and worked in this quiet town for nearly 20 years. And with a population of 50 to 5,000, he calls this place one of Arizona's best kept secrets.
There's people that I've been on airplanes with that I'm traveling across country, say, oh, I've been to Mormon Lake, but yet there's people in Flagstaff that don't know anything about it.
The only real question remains, where exactly is the lake?
Where's the lake? What happened to the lake? And of course, everybody asks that question.
Surrounded by a number of other natural lakes, Mormon Lake is the largest, but typically completely dry or shallow in certain areas.
The main reason that it does not hold a lot of water is, one, we have to have adequate snowfall because it's fed completely on runoff, and it's very shallow, so it evaporates easily.
Visitors, however, still flock the area, especially in mid-May, peak season for the Mormon Lake Lodge, which has long been the town's cornerstone. It is also where you'll find a saloon, country store, and family-sized comforts of home.
We have everything from small rooms, just small motel-type rooms, all the way up to large family-style cabins that'll sleep 12 people, with full kitchens, game tables, television, satellite, the whole works.
The works includes enjoying the great outdoors without ever having to rough it. Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. Did you know that the Mormon Lake Lodge became a destination in 1924 in the heyday of logging and ranching? As the story goes, a Chandler man built the lodge, called it Tumblers, and it became a summer getaway for his friends and family.
The community kind of was built back in the late teens and the early 20s. Back then, they didn't have any air conditioning per se in Phoenix. So they would send their wives and children up to spend the summer at Mormon Lake, and they'd have all these little cabins. So it was very usual to come through town and see nothing but women and children in town.
Well, today, 80 years later, the locals are still enjoying the legacy he left behind. A piece of that legacy includes the food.
It's always had a history of providing great meals. That country, large portions, and a steakhouse, of course. And we've tried to keep that reputation intact.
Known for its fireside steak, we couldn't do a show on Mormon Lake without visiting the steakhouse. We're talking authentic open pit.
We're one of the few, one of the oldest open mesquite steakhouse pits in the area still in existence. We actually cook our steaks on real mesquite wood, which gives it a real unique flavor, and it's done on a big open pit where the fire in the area down by the pit, it can get around 150 degrees, so you have to be pretty durable to deal with that. And I have people that fly over to Phoenix from California and drive up here to spend the weekend and get a steak dinner.
So bring your hungry man appetite and take a bite out of this place. It is sure to fill you up. Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
So how much have you guys ridden before? Gone once? How about you, buddy? How much have you ridden? This be your first time, huh?
Still to come, we go horseback riding.
Doing good, guys. How's Jesse treating you? Good, you're doing good.
Then join us for a few lessons in ranch roping from Arizona's best.
This ensures that the steer cannot get up.
What was my time?
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. Behind these giant wooden doors is a world of many wonders.
I think many people hear the word miniatures and maybe their first thought is dollhouses or playthings for children. It's not. There's a lot of artistry involved with the creation of miniatures, and there is applications and many other facets of things that our society does. But it's also about education and it's about imagination.
The Mini Time Machine Museum of Miniatures in Tucson takes you beyond your imagination and lets you explore the world at large.
In our permanent collection, we have 3 main gallery spaces. We have our Enchanted Realm Gallery, which is fantasy-based miniatures. We have the Contemporary Exploring the World Gallery, which showcases contemporary artists, fine scale, and miniatures that depict other places around the world. And our History Gallery, which is antique miniatures dating as far back as 1742.
The most popular scale for contemporary miniatures is a 1/12 scale, whereby a foot in real life equals an inch in the miniature world.
Many miniatures and miniature artists that we represent in our collections are fine-scale miniature artists, and they use processes and techniques that their full-scale counterparts would use in creating a piece. So a miniature silversmith who is good at his trade will actually cast his silver using the same process that a full-scale silversmith would, but on a 1/12 scale, which, as you can imagine, makes it so much more difficult to complete.
Miniatures was one of the top 3 hobbies in the United States starting in the late 70s and remained popular for about a decade.
Nowadays, and here in our museum, what we see is sort of one or two things. Visitors come in and they're so amazed by the craftsmanship and just imagining that process and what it might entail to make something so tiny and so exquisite. Or they are imagining themselves in a scene, and the miniatures really allow them to be different places and in different times that they wouldn't normally be able to experience.
Miniatures also help people see the big picture.
Architects have long used them to begin their process to make a scale model of something. They're also used in theater and in cinema to create sets, and sometimes they're seen as part of the final production, and sometimes they're just used so the cameraman can actually envision in a 3-dimensional application where cameras will be, where people will be, where light will be, and that helps them fully understand when they get to their full-scale creation of that scene. My favorite miniatures in the museum are in our History Gallery because they're so old and you really get a sense for what they have been through and what they've been used for. The oldest piece is a Nuremberg kitchen from 1742, and at that time in Germany, these kitchens were created to teach young girls how to become homemakers, and so they were sort of the predecessor of the easy bake oven. You would have plumbing that you could actually plumb water through so girls could learn to do the dishes and where those dishes would go. You could put a candle in the stove so they could practice applications of preparing a dinner and not cooking the dinner, obviously, but just going through the steps of what was involved in homemaking at that time.
Since opening in 2009, more than 200,000 visitors from all over the world have walked through these doors.
The number one thing we hear is that this is more than they expected. And I think people, Again, they hear the word miniatures, they're not sure what to expect. They maybe think of things they played with as a child or they saw in their grandmother's basement, and they come here and they see this world-class exhibit, and they see how miniatures still play an important role in our society in inspiring imagination and teaching people about things that are no longer here.
It really is a small world after all. Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. Just off that highway where you can get your kicks is an icon of roadside kitsch.
I'm Eleanor Lewis, and welcome to Wigwam Village number 6.
In the heart of Holbrook, Arizona, the vacancy sign is a beacon for this pit stop of Americana.
We opened the business June the 1st, 1950.
Who wouldn't want to step back into the 1950s and sleep in a wigwam along the most famous highway in America?
Most people think they're concrete, but actually it's wood construction with tar paper and chicken wire, and then cement on the inside and the outside, which has been done by hand. Most of our tourists that we get are those who really love the wigwams and who are really interested in Old Route 66.
The longest stretch of Route 66 carves its way through northern Arizona. It was replaced by the interstate highway system and was officially taken off the map in the mid-1980s. But the Wigwam Motel still has the allure of mid-century America that you can see before you even check in. And each wigwam still has the original handmade hickory furniture.
We are in wigwam number 15. There are 15 wigwams, but they're numbered 16 because number 13 is a superstitious number. And so we've always abided by that because that's the way my father had it.
Not a lot has changed in those 60-plus years since the wigwam first opened.
We did add color TV.
And cable. But Eleanor says her father would be proud that guests get to experience the wigwam as it was.
I want them to take away, a dream that they've actually slept in a wigwam, that they've had a peaceful night's rest, that they're in a small town located on, Highway 66, and that they can take a part of it with them.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. One of the most popular summer activities at Mormon Lake Lodge, horseback riding. So whether it's pony rides or half-day treks, what better way to explore 20 miles of trails set against 300 acres of pristine forest?
So how much have you guys ridden before? Gone once? How about you, buddy? How much have you ridden? This will be your first time, huh? How about you, sweetheart? Same for you. Okay, and Mom, how about you? Very little, okay. Most of the people that we take are people that have never ridden before. And they get out here and sometimes they've never seen a horse, so they can be nervous. Basically, we pick their horses out, match them to their personality and the experience level. Every time we put somebody on a horse, we tell them how to steer, we tell them how to put their feet. We keep an eye on them the entire time. We take them out on a guided trail ride, and we have good, friendly wranglers that take care of them and make sure they're calm and confident the entire time.
My name is Josh. That's Colleen up front. Eddie's riding around here. You guys have any questions, just give one of us a holler.
It's a nice, pretty area here in the pine trees. Lots of pine trees, lots of oak trees, and it's a nice, enjoyable way to spend the afternoon.
How you doing up here, bud? Your horse hasn't blown up bucking yet, has she? We wanted to ride the bucking horses.
Your grandpa told me to give you the wildest one. When they're done, most of the time they feel like they're an expert and they've had a great time. We'll make the most scared person come back with a smile on their face every time. All right, sweetie, you sure did a good job.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. No other animal symbolizes the great outdoors quite like your trusted steed, except perhaps the buffalo. Still to come, join us as we discover bison in them there hills. Find out how these wild beasts have come to call this region home.
In 1997, the owner, Rex, said, you know, Scott, you need to have a couple buffalo out here. And I thought he was joking. In 1998, he came up the next year and he says, where are the buffalo? So I thought, oh, you're serious.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism. Mormon Lake is the largest natural lake in Arizona, fed by rain and snowmelt. On these 300 acres of the Coconino National Forest, you'll find a number of other natural lakes. Heading north, you'll find Upper Lake Mary, a long and narrow lake popular with power boaters and water skiers. It's also known for its northern pike and yellow bass. Then head over to the gorgeous Ashhurst Lake, which is always stocked with rainbow and brook trout. After that, just a bit south of Mormon Lake, check out the remote Kinnickinnic with the San Francisco Peaks in the horizon. Here, enjoy trout fishing and antelope watching. Just a few more reasons to enjoy that refreshing mountain country air. Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
Hey, Silver.
Visitors will also find it curious that buffalo, otherwise known as the American bison, are calling this place home.
In 1997, the owner, Rex, said, you know, Scott, you need to have a couple buffalo out here. And I thought he was joking. In 1998, he came up the next year and he says, where are the buffalo? So I thought, oh, you're serious.
Romeo and Juliet were the first ones purchased, and the herd just grew from there, 10 in all, and weighing up to 2,000 pounds. But don't let their docile nature fool you. These creatures can outjump and outrun almost any predator.
A buffalo can jump 6 feet easily, yeah, if it wants to. They can run about 30 miles an hour. They don't pivot on their rear like a cow or cattle do. They pivot on their front, so they can do a 180 without breaking a stride, so they're very fast for as big as they are.
These wild beasts can also live some 28 years. So far, this pack has given Mormon Lake a new calf each season, and now will always roam this home on the range.
You never really can tame a buffalo, and it's kind of like a grizzly bear. But if you're feeding them and they're happy and like they are now, you don't have to worry about them.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
This ensures that the steer cannot get up. What was my time?
Still to come, we catch up with real-life ranch ropers and get a lesson on running and branding cattle. That's straight ahead.
No, he doesn't know what's coming.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
This style of roping has been around for years and years.
Shoot, since California was conquered.
It's becoming America's cowboy sport, the sport of team roping.
We'll just neck one out here, nice and easy and gentle like there. So they're gonna kind of windmill a little bit around the other guy there, but we'll get them caught, we'll lay them down.
Based on the real-life profession of ranch ropers like Kyla and Brad, this daring and entertaining event turns competitive inside arenas across America.
It's more of a passion and an art than it is a job. It's a lifestyle.
This duo has been a team for 5 years, running cattle for ranchers all over the state, and then even competing together in the ring.
I look for somebody that can tolerate me.
I'm not saying it's much different here.
That's why we make a pretty good team, really.
We caught up with this team at Mormon Lake Lodge. The goal, they say, is to humanely catch a calf who might be sick and in need of medicine.
What you want to do is kind of put them in a corner, hold them up, and get the one sick one out and get them roped so you can lay them down and give them shots or give them antibiotics or whatever it is that you need to doctor them with.
Today, they needed to do some branding, which they promised feels like a small blister on a steer's tough hide.
No, he doesn't know what's coming.
In the field, causing little to no stress on cattle is the goal. But in the arena, this is a timed and somewhat hectic event. No pressure on these two.
This ensures that the steer cannot get up.
What was my time? Basically, anybody can do it. All they need to do is just dedicate their time to their horse and their rope. You know, that's all there is to it. Shoot, all you need is just a decent horse and a lot of try.
And a lot of try they have, as Kyla and Brad saddle up each day, definitely loving every minute of it.
Shoot, basically just good cattle management. No
What's not
boss.
to love about this right here? I mean, you spend all day in the saddle. How can you argue that?
Yeah.
Each week, we take you to an Arizona destination worth your travels. And now you can add Mormon Lake to your must-do list. Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I'm Robin Sewell, and we'll see you on the next Arizona Highways. Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.